Working in groups often meet to make decisions and to solve their problems. However, they sometimes become reluctant to share their opinions because of the fear they may appear unsupportive. Groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when the desire for group consensus or agreement overrides people's common sense desire to present alternatives, critique a position, or express an unpopular opinion. Here, the desire, the group cohesion, effectively drives out good decision making and problem solving. The communication context this theory uses is majorly small group and team in an organizational context. There are three assumptions to the groupthink theory. The first theory is that conditions in groups promote high cohesiveness. This means that extents to which groups are willing to work together, their group sense of togetherness. Group members frequently have a common sentiment or emotional investment and tend to maintain a group identity. This guarantees that a group will be agreeable and highly cohesive. The second assumption is that group problem solving is primarily a unified process. This means that members strive to get along. People are not predisposed to disrupting decision making in small groups. The third assumption is groups and group decision making are frequently complex. This means that members must understand the task at hand and the people who provide input into the task. What leads people to task accomplishment is knowing that an individual will be evaluated by other individuals. If group dynamics are complex, then why do we work in groups? Well, the answer is that two heads are better than one. Groups are better at problem solving than individuals alone because of their availability to more information. Though group work, people are able to achieve goals more efficiently. There are multiple conditions of groupthink that can promote or lead to it. The first condition is high cohesiveness of the decision-making group. This can bring cohesiveness is a necessary ingredient, and groups are to arrive at an inconclusive and informed decision. When the effectiveness or consequences of a group's decision remain secondary to a group's cohesion, this group is bound to groupthink. The second condition is that specific cultural characteristics of the environment in which the group functions. These specific characteristics promote groupthink, such as insulation of the group, lack of impartial leadership, homogeneity of group members' backgrounds, and lack of clear procedures for decisions. Insulation of the group means that group insulation refers to a group's ability to be unaffected by the outside world. They do not solicit the opinions and views of those external to the group. Lack of impartial leadership means that group members are led by people who have a personal interest in the outcome. Homogeneity of group members' backgrounds. Without diversity of background and experience, it can be difficult to debate issues. The lack of diversity makes it easier for them to concur on whatever proposals are put forth by the leader. And the last one, the lack of clear procedures for decision, means that groups may be influenced by dominant voices and go along with the voices who speak up. For example, in a classroom, only certain students like to answer questions from the teacher in front of everybody. Usually once the person speaks up, the rest of the class stays silent and lets that student take the lead. The last condition that promotes groupthink is stressful internal and external characteristics of the situation. Now, there are multiple symptoms of groupthink. For example, I put the Mean Girls movie reference picture in there because that is a good example of groupthink of Regina and the Plastics. The Plastics do not have a voice. They just agree with Regina and whatever she says or thinks is right. They just do not have a voice, and that's a good example of groupthink. Conditions lead groups to concurrent seeking, which occurs when groups try to reach consensus or agreement on their final decision. Striving to avoid disagreements and debates within a group. Concurrent seeking when it goes too far, this produces symptoms of groupthink. There are three categories of these symptoms, including overstimulation of the group, closed-mindedness, and pressures towards uniformity. In overstimulation of the group, there are two subcategories: illusion of invulnerability and belief in the inherent morality of the group. Illusion of the invulnerability means that groups believe that they are special enough to overcome any obstacles or setbacks. When no one speaks out or voices an alternative opinion, it causes people to believe that that group must be right. And the belief in the inherent morality of the group means that they adopt the position that they are a good and wise group. Their decision-making must be good and ignores the ethical and moral implications in decision-making. Closed-mindedness means that They ignore outside influences on the group. They include out-group stereotypes, which are stereotype perceptions of rivals and enemies. And then they also include collective rationalization, which is the situation in which group members ignore warnings that might prompt them to reconsider their thoughts and actions before reaching a final decision. Pressure towards uniformity includes self-censorship, illusion of unanimity, presence of self-appointed mind guards, and direct pressure on dissenters. Self-censorship means that group members' tendency to minimize their doubts and counter arguments, second guess their own ideas. Rather than sharing what they know, they remain quiet and assume that the group must know best. Illusion of unanimity, silence means that silence is consent. Members are to believe that everyone is in agreement and feels the same way. It is often much more difficult to speak out when it seems that everyone else in the group is on the same page. Mind guards believe that they act in the group's best interest. Rather than sharing important information, they keep private or quiet and actively prevent sharing. Direct pressure on dissenters means that pressuring any team member who expresses opinions and viewpoints that are opposite to the majority opinion. We communicate in groups very often, if not daily. Most careers involve group meetings or group task forces that require the best decision making, such as in a classroom setting, business meetings, police emergency responder task forces, and even professional sports teams. Examples such as these employees not wanting to speak up in a work meeting because they do not want to cause conflict with team members, ideas, or get rejected, as well as students not speaking up against a professor's views or opinions because it might affect their grades for disagreeing with them. Anytime we are in a group setting, coming to or to seeking a decision, there are many opportunities for groupthink to arrive. When we find ourselves in these situations, there are ways to avoid and prevent groupthink. The ways to avoid groupthink is require oversight and control, embrace whistleblowing in the group, allow for objection, and balance consensus and majority rule. Groupthink is not always problematic. In the best cases, it's always a group to make decisions. It allows a group to make decisions, complete tasks, and finish projects quickly and efficiently. In the worst cases, it leads to poor decision making and inefficient problem solving. This theory helps improve our communication in a group setting because we understand the disadvantages that can come from working within a group. Require oversight and control means that hold key decision makers accountable for their actions. This should be done before the debate begins. And embrace whistleblowing in the group means that group members should be encouraged to voice concerns, question assumptions, and disagree with the debate. They should also be allowed to allow for objections and balance the agreement and majority rule. Work towards a majority of support. By understanding groupthink and knowing how to prevent it, group decision making can be as strong as ever, coming to the conclusions of the best solution instead of poor decisions due to poor group dynamics. Although groupthink critiques of the groupthink, problems of this theory, scope and testability, scope, heuristic, and tested time. Researchers criticize the validity of the theory, which means that, and they criticize that half of the symptoms of groupthink are not related to concurrent seeking, which causes problems in the validity and reliability of the theory. Although groupthink often leads to bad, even unethical decisions, group members and leaders should try to avoid groupthink by creating diverse and inclusive groups, enabling members to voice their views without fear, and considering opposing views seriously.